It's an experience many of us have had. And I just had it again. I've had it before, and there it was right again. The experience I'm talking about is the loss of friends through death. In a 2-week period, I had 3 long-term friends die. They were in different parts of the world. There are people I knew for 35 years, though I worked with at one time in my life. And since the time we worked together, we stayed in touch with each other. We texted each other. We sent emails. We sent cards. We did the things that you do to maintain a friendship at a distance. And over the years, we shared many things and a lot of different thoughts and reflections on books we read. And these were people who I really appreciated in my life. And then they died. And I wasn't able to attend the funerals. And, it left me with a real sense of loss. Today I want to talk about that kind of loss, that multiple loss, the loss of friends, and what people don't tell us to prepare for that. I want to talk about those things that help us through that kind of grief. And as I do, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and to click the bell so you're notified of future videos. I want to start by talking a little more conceptually about grief and think about 2 different categories. So there are the kinds of losses we experience that other people recognize, that like when we lose a family member, when our spouse or a parent or a child or a grandparent or someone in our family dies. People recognize that. They offer expressions of sympathy. They may bring food to our home so that we don't have to cook. They show up at the memorial service for us. We plan the funeral and memorial service and may have a role in it, but we make decisions about it. And we get time off work, and there are things that happen naturally that support us through that process, especially at the beginning of the process. But when a close friend dies, there's none of that. Many people don't recognize the friendship, or they think, it was just a friend. It's not that big of a deal. And if they say anything, they'll say, I'm sorry, but, time heals all wounds. You'll get through it. But time doesn't heal this. This isn't something that gets better on its own. Grief doesn't resolve itself. It's never like the person was never there. Instead, we have to reorganize our life. But part of that person stays with us. And this becomes even more complicated when there are more people that die in a close proximity of time that we know. Because part of what happens for us is we feel the grief for one person, and then because the grief wasn't really worked through very well for someone else, we move from one person to the next person to the next person, and it goes back around. And over time, we feel ourselves moving more into a sense of melancholy. And there's this sadness that we feel. It's not depression, but it's a sadness. And there's also some frustration and anger, and we may be irritable. And our friends recognize that, but they don't know why. And sometimes we're not really sure why. It's important to understand that there's both this recognized grief and the kinds of grief that are not recognized, that Kenneth Doka, the researcher, referred to as disenfranchised grief. And when people don't recognize the grief we're experiencing, we're truly trying to work through our grief alone. It's a very isolating experience. And we're not sure what to do with it because somehow it feels like maybe we shouldn't be feeling this, but yet we know that there was a strong connection we had with the person who died. They may have been a friend, they may have been a mentor, they may have been someone we mentored, but it's someone that we had a deep connection with. I think what's important for us to recognize is that the connection is real. And just because the person has died doesn't mean we feel unconnected or less connected, That person still is part of us. That relationship made us who we are. It's been part of our life, and there are things about it we've valued. So we do mourn the loss of those connections because the exchanges we had with them, whatever they may have been, in terms of my friends, it was the texting and the writing and the way we shared reflections. But it may have been, a buddy you went to play football with, or someone that you spent time doing some other activity with. And that connection, it's not there in the same way, but it is there within you. And so I think it's important to name that and to recognize it and to value it for yourself. And to allow yourself to still feel that connection and feel the loss, because it's feeling that helps us move through. The feelings come and go, and the feelings become less intense over time, but they'll still come back. I often think of my friend Rick, who died in 1992. That's over 30 years ago. We were very close. We did an awful lot of things together. And I often think even today, I'll see something on TV or read it or see something in my day-to-day life, and I'll think, Rick would have really enjoyed that, or he would think that was funny, or he'd think that was a great insight. And sometimes I think, gee, I wish Rick would have lived long enough to see this thing, to see that it happened. I wonder what he would make of it. So that there's a way in which my friend Rick, who died over 30 years ago, is still part of me. And that's important to recognize, because our friends are still part of us. The people who have passed are part of our life. And so we acknowledge that and recognize that. And for me, I'm thankful for that, because those deep relationships have helped make me be the person I am. And there's great value in that. So be patient with yourself. Take care of yourself. Eat well, exercise, all the basics. But pay attention to your emotional experience, because the grief is real. And sometimes we pretty much have to go at it alone. And that can be a really daunting course, but it's a part of the way that we reverence the person who was part of our life. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, like the video, share it with others, make some comments. Feel free to reach out to share some of your experience. And know that I appreciate the time you spend on Spirituality Beyond Borders. Have a really great day.